Hey everybody, time for Philosophical Rambling 7. So, today I'm going to be talking about all entries from 324 to 11. I just realized that basically 15 minutes ago I realized I should have done this earlier today, but I forgot to, so sorry about that. And as you can also kind of tell, it's kind of late, so my ramblings may be more ramblish than usual. Anyway, so I'm here to discuss master versus slave morality, hierarchy, whether it's natural or not, which will involve Aristotle and Nietzsche. A mix of master and slave morality being better. Nietzsche argues that is the case. I will, examine the argument and see whether it's true or not. Aesthetics and morality. That's what I'll be discussing. Just a heads up, philosophical rambling number 8, which is scheduled for Thursday, which I'm scheduling for Thursday rather. Has a lot of parts to it. I don't know if I'll be able to get it all in one video. So I may have part 1 and part 2, but it'll all be under one rambling. I have philosophical up to philosophical rambling 12 all figured out. And for those who follow me on Facebook, I'll be posting my latest paper, actually my first paper topic in philosophy, which was, I don't know if you guys can read that. You guys can't really read that. But anyway, it's my first paper topic, and it was about Immanuel Kant's essay on a supposed right to lie because of philanthropic concerns. And I just talk a lot about duties and conflicts of duty, which is the main criticism of Kant, as I understand it, anyway. So what criticism I made wasn't really that new or anything, but it's what I gathered. I didn't even know that was a big criticism of him. So I wasn't really looking at other philosophers and saying, "Oh, hey, that's a good criticism," which I could have done honestly, but I just didn't. So anyway, I also just got back from my New York City, not my New York City, but the anarchist book fair and stuff like that. It was a good time. I'm not going to get into that, but anyway, sorry for getting distracted. I'm rambling away from rambling. So, master versus slave morality. Master morality basically is for the leaders, the people who seek danger, the people who are in control. Um, while the slave morality is the herd morality or mentality. It's basically people who are in groups, people who are weaker, people who are afraid of the ones who are in the slave, who are afraid of the people in the system, not in the system, in the upper echelon of the morality. According to Nietzsche, of course, slave morality, master morality is a lot higher. Um, so I'm curious whether there is actually this distinction to be made. Certainly, there is a kind of herd collective mentality with a lot of people, but I don't know if it's as Nietzsche describes. Um, I don't know if really there's if um, if like Nietzsche describes that this is really the case, or um, if instead it's more like diverse than just master and slave morality. Um, because I mean, master morality is when basically everybody wants to have your position, and when you have a position of power. I mean, of course, I'm again, as I always do, I do this from memory. I don't do this from research or anything like that, which is bad. I'm not saying that's a good tactic. I'm not saying I'm proud of myself for doing that. But whenever I turn these things on, I never really look at the concepts and try to study them in detail and look at all these essays and stuff. Nor do I even do a Wikipedia. Honestly, I just do this stuff from memory, and whatever I come up with is whatever I come up with. That's kind of the rambling aspect of this, is that I don't heavily research everything. I just say what's off the top of my head. And if I get distracted during stuff, I apologize. I have a bit of a bad tendency to check Facebook on videos whenever and I get an update, regardless of whether it'll stop me from talking or not. So anyway, again, I'm sidetracking, probably because I'm tired and also it's late, and I'm just gonna make 101 excuses. So my main point here, and that I keep detracting from, but at least I'm detracting from my own point, and it's not somebody else. But I'm not sure which is worse, is that maybe Nietzsche's master versus slave morality is not all there is. I don't think there's just one class of people who have who are afraid of danger, and one class who do like danger and seek it out and try to conquer it. So I don't know. I think it's a bit more complex than that. I think I bet Nietzsche recognizes this in several ways too, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Hierarchy, is it natural? Aristotle made the case that some people are just naturally better off in the condition of slavery because they're just better being slaves than they are masters. Um, so the question then, and this is a question that's plagued, well, it doesn't really plague philosophy much anymore, but it did plague philosophy for hundreds of years, is whether hierarchy of that caliber of slavery is actually natural, specifically chattel slavery, where you are, principally the other person's possessions. You are owned by someone else. You do not have control over your own means of actions, thought, and virtues, and so forth. Um, but Aristotle argued that in politics that it was natural for some people to be slaves or some people to be under other people, because they were just better attuned to such a position and it would be more beneficial to everyone. Of course, I disagree, and most people would disagree. There's no way you could actually tell whether people are better off in slavery than others. You would have to let such relationships foster, or you'd have to let such relationships. You wouldn't have to let such relationships at all. The idea that you would have to let relationships, that you would have to allow relationships like slavery to exist is ridiculous. But let's say, for example, we let such a civilization like Rome exist mostly on the basis of slavery. Well, you can see what happens. Eventually, people got lazy. They become so economically dependent on the slaves that they don't really do much themselves. The military gets weaker and weaker. Germanic tribes start invading, and then boom, Rome's gone. Rome wasn't built in a day, but sure as hell was destroyed in one. Of course, that's probably not historically accurate. I just wanted to say that. But anyway, probable historical inaccuracies aside, Nietzsche also argues that there is a sort of natural hierarchy of people, and that slaves and masters are sort of a natural thing too, and the feminine should be under the man and so forth. But again, I don't think it's anyone's place to uniformly command or control where people stand in relations of power and social standing to other people. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's plausible. I don't think it's effective. I think that when Aristotle tries to say that some people are naturally better at slaves, he doesn't really know what he's talking about. I can't imagine a situation in which people's resources are being exploited more in a systematic, individual, decentralized way. This is actually, slavery is probably decentralized statism if you think about it, because the state claims to own, your body, and through the drafts and through wars and through taxes and stuff like that. But when you have a slaveholder, I mean, that's just decentralized to the point of it's like right in your face, and that's not good decentralization. While anarchists obviously favor a more decentralized system, they would have to. I think anyway. They wouldn't necessarily favor all forms of decentralization, like states' rights. States' rights wouldn't necessarily be good. And going back to the slave issue, it's hard to determine who would be better under slavery or not. I think people would be better in freely chosen associations. And it's not. And the great thing about saying something like that is I don't have to choose for them. I don't have to decide. I let them make their own decisions. Liberty is the idea that people can make these constructions on their own, not an assignment of specific constructions. And any structure that denies liberty or denies that people are able to do that should be defended against, and this is moral. Nietzsche also says a mix of. Also, by the way, I apologize, I'm all over the place, but again, ramblings, not supposed to be entirely composed and well thought out. Anyway, a mix of morality is better. So Nietzsche says that actually having a slave and master morality is actually a bit better, because you can relate to the people while you can still seek out danger and conquer it, and you can also be the envy of other people and still be powerful while still relating to other people and not losing sight of the people below you. And it's sort of like Aristotle's magnanimous person, who basically kicks ass and like is a really good person, but they know they're a good person and try to help other people be good as well, because that's what good people should do, spread the goodness. Spread the goodness. But anyway, that's ideally what they should do, according to Aristotle, and I would agree with that. So it's in similar ways. It's sort of like the magnanimous person, and the person who's a mix of master and slave may be that. Also, you may just be a bullshit politician who tries to pretend like he's in touch with the lower class, like Mayor Bloomberg. I was talking while in Anarchist City, in New York City, with a friend of mine who has been living in New York off and on, and he says Bloomberg, tries to have this whole Mayor Bloomberg of New York City tries to have this big image of him being with the people, but he's a millionaire, he's a billionaire, he's rich, he's fucking rich. He's not with the lower class. He's really never been with the lower class. He's with the ruling class, and that's important to understand. So I think a mix of moralities, if we only have the choice between slave and master, which I don't think is the case, would be best. Aesthetics and morality. I kind of discussed this in the last post. Nietzsche tends to think of morality as something that needs to be exciting, something that needs to really get the mind going and stuff. I mean, I'd agree, but I don't think morality should be solely based on that. And the way Nietzsche discusses it kind of brings up a bigger topic of aesthetics and morality. That is basically what aesthetics is basically the philosophy of art, I suppose it would be called. If I'm wrong on that, someone correct me and what have you. Um, but yeah, and whether you can apply morality to aesthetics, whether you can say an art form is immoral or something. Now, of course, I don't think so because art is subjective. There is some objectivity, I think, within it due to the effort and amount of effort you put in and value that comes in and out. Art, by the way, is we had a philosophy club meeting last Thursday, and basically art was defined as something that is non-tangible or that is um, a physical mass that is manipulated by human efforts for a purposeful end goal. And the second is that it does not, that some feature of it does not have some practical element of it. So, like the rose design on a vase, or a vase, if you want to get fancy and technical, would be art because it has no practical purpose, but it was manipulated by human effort towards a certain goal. So that'd be art. And if anyone finds any problems with that, let me know. So then, would there be morality involved? And yes, my shirt has a hole. I'm very poor. Excuse me. Um, so the question is, can morality come into aesthetics? And I don't think so. I mean, I think the big problem is people try to apply morality to everything and say, well, there's got to be something morally wrong with it. There's got to be something morally good about it. I mean, maybe, but art is a lot about subjective interpretation and experience. And there's a lot of lessons you can get out of it, and there's a lot of good and bad. So I don't think if there is any sort of morality, it's not straightforward. It's probably lots of shades of gray. So anyway, this lasted a lot longer than I thought it would. I only had 4 topics. Next time I have, like, I don't know, like, probably about 10 topics or so. So it'll probably be a 2-parter. So anyway, thanks for sticking around, and sorry I was so incoherent. I'll try to do better. I know these are ramblings, so I can only use, well, this is a rambling so many times as an excuse before it gets ridiculous. So I'll try to do better in the future. I will have another bass cover of Settle for Nothing by Rage Against the Machine up today, technically. I do not know when, probably in the afternoon or something, but you guys will see it when I have it up. So anyway, thanks. I hope to keep getting more views, and eventually I'll start responding to other people's videos, I think, so I can get more viewers, and which would be nice. It's not a huge deal to me, but it'd be nice. Whatever. Anyway, thanks for listening.